in conversation with some fascinating ladies who've changed the game in the world of video, music, and gaming. Only on Hungama's Women Game Changers podcast.
Hi, welcome to Hungama's celebration of the 50 Game Changers 2024. Over this season, you will get to know women who are chalking their own path and paving the way for the multitudes to follow in the field of entertainment across movies, music, and gaming. I'm Raunaq from Hungama, and it's my pleasure to welcome the game changer, Anila Andrade, the head of operations at Social Point, based in Barcelona with almost 20 years of experience in the gaming and tech industry, who brings a lot of science and data and fun to some of the biggest games there are, like Dragon City, Walking Dead, Top Troops. Welcome, Anila, and thank you for leading games into the place it should be, with fun and insightful growth. And thank you most of all for taking the time to share the knowledge and shorten the learning curve.
Thank you for highlighting me and giving me this opportunity as well, Raunaq. I'm very, very happy to share my learnings with whoever is interested to pave a way in this path.
Anila, I think we'll start with a little bit about your personal journey and how you have gotten to a point where you're in a leadership position at one of arguably the largest gaming companies we know.
Well, like you said, it's almost 2 decades now since I started my journey here. I did my engineering in electronics and communications and landed my first job opportunity via campus in a company called Robosoft Technologies. It was a company very close to home. And unlike most people in my batch, who took up opportunities in the larger conglomerates like Infosys and Tata and so on and so forth. Here there was an opportunity for me to work in more of a startup setup, which intrigued me, and I wanted to take learnings from it. What was unique about this company was the fact that they were working on the Mac operating system as opposed to working on the PC. And it was interesting at the time because Apple was still not as big as it is today. Well, I started my journey there, working on several enterprise apps, gaming apps as well. I landed into gaming by fluke. It wasn't by choice. And that's why I think luck also has to play a role in shaping your journey. As I progressed, I think I was at Robosoft for about 4 years. And that was also the time when Apple opened up the iPhone and the apps associated with iPhones. And as a part of Robosoft Technologies, we were working on several of these apps for the iPhone. And back in the day, our CEO figured that, okay, we've been working on apps for different companies for some time now. How about us making games for ourselves and for our players? And hence we sort of created a spin-off of 5-6 of us from Robosoft, I think, and started creating games of our own and games that we were passionate about, casual games. We didn't really do much of market research back in the day. It was all based off of our interests. And that's how I sort of wormed my way into the world of gaming, casual gaming in the mobile gaming space.
Okay. Tell me, how was it kind of getting in and getting accepted, especially 2 decades back when it was still a little bit of a boys' club?
Yeah, gaming is, if you're speaking about gaming specifically, it's quite interesting. No, there are some kind of stereotypes associated with gaming. Most parents would be like, you're spending too much of time doing nothing, whiling away your time instead of learning and being a little bit more productive. But I think I was not at that phase just yet because I was not an avid console gamer. So my parents never came to me and told me, hey, stop playing, do something else other than playing. I got into this, I'm more of a mobile first generation, I would say, also in India because you have more gamers on mobile than you have probably on console. And often most people don't even associate themselves as gamers. You play a game, but you don't call yourself a gamer, no? And I think I belong to that category of people. So the journey was not as hard from a gaming perspective. From a technical perspective, it was interesting because you would not normally see a lot of female programmers, females in the technical space. It's strange because in my batch of engineering, at least there were a 50-50, distribution of male versus female, I would think, or maybe at least 40-60. But I think over a period of time, most of the girls they settled down, they got married and they chose probably raising their families over a career. In certain other cases, they chose opportunities that were not technically oriented, but they were more creative. And it's interesting. It could be, you could take on careers as a mix of both. Gaming especially is a culmination of that. No, it's creativity combined with technical aspects and business intelligence as well. And slowly I saw that at least in 99 games, we were a small team. I think when we started, like I said, we were 5 or 6. And when I left about 5 years ago, we were around 90, I think. And about 30% of them, I think, would have been females, if I'm not wrong.
Well, those are excellent numbers to hear. I think all the way from being in a tech school with those percentages, all the way to, I think, just seeing more women in gaming. Tell me, as you have, you're quite vocal and you're present and you make your presence felt. How does that work for you? Do you still feel sometimes like you are the woman in the room?
Yeah, I think you're right, Raunaq. It's very important for you to make your voice heard. And often I think, most people take a step back, girls a little bit more, because you're one among 10 other people in the room. No, you're a very small percentage of people in the room. It helps to be vocal, and you can be vocal if you're knowledgeable, and you can be knowledgeable if you do your homework. You have to be up to date. You have to keep yourself updated with what is happening in the industry, and the industry evolves so much. Gaming as an industry is so volatile. So what I learned 20 years ago, not all of it is relevant anymore. And it's important for you to be up to speed and up to date on all of it. I didn't really have so much of a problem in my previous organization. I don't have it now at Social Point as well. But again, the problem remains the same. We are we are minority in the company, and that's where we want to bring a change.
No, because sometimes I still feel, when you're in a room, and it's a mixed room. See, in your own companies, you've earned your spurs. Everybody knows, what you're talking about. But I think sometimes when you're in a mixed room, where you're in forums, there is often a tendency to mansplain a little bit, even though you're the one who's building the games and not just playing them. So I agree with what you're saying, and I think it is important to make your presence felt. I think for yourself and your own growth, as well as for just generally for more women to be seen and heard in gaming. Sandhya from Meta, Devanathan, just recently said, "You can't be what you can't see," and I thought that was a very interesting way of putting it, because getting accepted is a second step. The aspiration to even exploring that as a career continues to be, one where I think a lot of women don't see themselves as gamers. Something that you said interestingly just now, you said you don't see yourself as an avid gamer. Yes. And I said this recently at Apple, and, I was just like, I don't necessarily identify as a gamer. And I could tell that everybody was a little surprised. But the fact is, I may spend over 2 hours in the course of a day trying out different games, playing games that I really enjoy. But you still see a gamer as this boy sitting in one of those at the console, having his...
It's a very feminine tendency, Raunaq. I think women are a little bit more, the way their brain functions, they look at things in a realism. So if they do it, they say that they are engaged. If they don't, they don't. But they're multitasking. They're doing 10 other things, and they don't explicitly mention it. In the case of a man, I think they don't need to express. And we find the need to express. No, I don't think a boy would come and say, "I don't play games. I'm not an avid gamer," even though he's playing games, But a woman would come in and say, "Okay, I'm not an avid gamer. I play casual games," which is just this
a distinction without a difference, but it's true. What do you think are the inherent traits in you that sort of suited you to be able to grow also in your position? Because I do see girls, especially on the animation and art side, coming into gaming. I see narrators coming into gaming. Now I'm seeing some very interesting designers in the Indian space as well, and also globally. But I'm now looking to, we're hoping to amplify more women to be seen in leadership roles, where I think there was a very interesting post that you had shared about actionable insights, about kind of reaching that point where you think you have to have actionable insights and then make those changes.
Yeah. Well, for me, I'm coming to think of it, what worked for me, Raunaq, was the fact that I kept myself up to speed. I spent a lot of time learning, playing other games, even though it was not necessarily games that I enjoyed playing the most. You usually have an association with, you resonate with certain kinds of games, and back in the early days, I would get out of my comfort zone. That helped me because, like I said, one of the fundamental things you need to do is build up your knowledge, be knowledgeable enough to challenge a decision that is a question that comes your way, So in the early days, that helped me a lot. Also being communicative. I'm a very vocal person. I say things like the way I see it, but I think I also do it in a bit of a grounded manner. So my sense is that I might not come across as aggressive, but I'm yet pushy, I try to get things done. And
I have two questions based on that. One, do you feel that as a woman you work harder?
I think I do, without a doubt. I think I do. I'm not sure how hard men work. It's hard to compare, but I know that I personally worked incredibly hard to get to where I am today.
And also, do you feel like there is a greater pressure to not be seen as aggressive or pushy, as opposed to assertive as a woman leader, especially in technology, gaming, the larger entertainment space?
It depends on what you're working towards, I think, Raunaq. It depends on the context. It's important. You have to be aggressive at certain moments if you're trying to get things done, because at the end of the day, you're running a business. You're accountable for something and you need to get things done. So if you have done your research, you have your numbers in place, you have your estimates in place, and you have a goal and a strategy to get there, you have to be aggressive. Otherwise, you will miss the bus. You miss the plot. But there are also other instances where you can be a little bit more flexible. Based on the context again, and you would be able to walk your way through. I don't know if there is a well-defined answer for it. It changes based on context. We all make mistakes. I have made several mistakes in my journey to get here, but it's also been an incredibly high learning experience for me, and I've evolved in time.
Okay, I think that's actually a fairly specific answer. Especially, given that gaming is evolving and it's evolving so quickly. Yes. That, you're constantly, you're getting outpaced literally by somebody who finished 6 months after you. Yes. So, you really do have to stay updated and, know what everyone else is talking about. Tell me, one of the things that you talked about was also working with creative people, and especially now in a position where you're looking at growth and the business side of it as well. How do you balance between artistic integrity and commercial success as a gaming leader?
Well, that's a very interesting question, and I don't know. It's a very hard answer to to share, but. Well, I don't know whether there's a right answer to it, but at least in the context that I'm working in right now, I know that we do a lot of business intel. So we learn about our competitors, we try to understand our audiences, we run a lot of surveys to get to understand what people want versus don't like in the game. So we collect all of these data points and we share it with the team, the artists included. And this allows us to make a decision based off of the data that we get. It becomes a lot more easier than just telling them, hey, we need to get this done.
Yeah. You need to do a double undo, that kind of, yeah. Okay. So, you mentioned that, women tend not to have, one of the things that you really do need to do is stay updated, and a lot of women, they also have taken time out to settle down. How do you balance this in your life? Because the role at home doesn't change as much as your role in the office has changed.
No, it is. It is incredibly hard, and it's an interesting balance, Raunaq. For me personally, it's been an interesting journey. When I was in India about 5 years ago, I had my family supporting me, at least on my personal level. Things were very smooth. food was cooked and ready on the table. There was not much that I needed to do. Since then, I'm here in Spain with my husband and my 6-year-old daughter, figuring out things on my own. It's been an interesting balance, but there's also support from my husband, from my daughter. She's 6 years, but she comes to help me wash the dishes. And I love her too, because I think it's important for her to observe, to learn, and develop, into a beautiful woman whenever she's there. I think it's important. I don't believe in... I wouldn't want to pamper her. She's the only one, but I wouldn't want to pamper her. So for me, it's been an interesting journey.
I think as we teach them to go out and conquer the world, I have a daughter too, we must also teach them life skills of looking after themselves, sustaining themselves. Absolutely. Yes. I think these are vital skills and no longer gendered roles.
Yes, certainly. And I think we have to raise our kids to be strong, independent people, boy or a girl, irrespective, no? And I think these are things that help them the most. In my case, on a professional level, I try to keep myself updated whenever I have an opportunity. Even when I'm commuting, I'm listening to something. I'm constantly listening to a podcast, or I'm reading a business-driven article, or I'm even playing a competitor's game or our own. And I keep myself up to speed while outside I work during my commute. But once I'm inside the house, I'm trying to shift roles. It's hard because I'm a workaholic. And sometimes my husband has to remind me to, keep work in the office. But yeah, that's when I try to balance engaging with household chores.
One of the things that I've noticed, especially over the 4 years that we've been working on amplifying women in entertainment, is that a lot of women tend not to network as much as their male counterparts. And I think women tend to think of that as time they could instead be home.
Yes.
Their child, being a mother, being a homemaker, whatever, all of those many other hats that a woman has to wear. And I feel like networking then becomes a place where a lot of growth and also interaction happens, and then builds to relationships. How does that play out in the gaming business, according to you?
I think it differs from country to country, and I have two experiences to share. One based in India and one based here in Spain. I think in Spain it's easy. People are naturally sociable. So you tend to go out, and we have an after-works beer here, which is not necessarily something that you see in India, for instance. So people get out, they meet together after work or over lunch or even dinner sometimes. And even over the weekends, they spend a lot. They're naturally sociable and they discuss work. They play with each other. Sometimes they get to somebody else's home and they're playing a console game, for instance, and so on and so forth. I didn't see it as much in India, as much as I do see it out here. And when I'm saying I'm referring to Spain, I'm referring to it being gender agnostic. India, you probably would see men going a little bit more often than girls. Also because there is some kind of a taboo, associated with girls hanging out after work before they get home. And also in terms of, having a social experience, maybe taking a drink or whatever, it's a different mindset altogether. But I know there are alternative ways to get it done. And I know that there are several of these initiatives, like they have Women in Gaming as a group. They have these kind of offline networks, webinars where people engage. Helpful, not the most ideal, because the kind of relationships that you can build in person is very different from a network that you can build offline, And I think over a period of time, people would naturally shift into being a little bit more sociable. But I think we are getting there, but we're not there yet.
No. Earlier this year, we had partnered with the Mumbai Tech Week, and our founder Neeraj was one of the founders of Mumbai Tech Week. So we actually sent out an invite to the 3 cohorts to say that, anybody who is free, attend. And so many of the women mailed me back or messaged me and said, what am I going to do at Mumbai Tech Week? Mm-hmm. And I was just like, what in your life are you doing that does not involve technology? Even if it's communication or PR. When was the last time you did something interesting or important that wasn't on tech? Or a platform that was tech-based. So, I think it is, and I think a lot of them don't end up doing conferences And the first couple of times you're at a conference, you're a little lost.
Yeah.
But I think you kind of get there and you learn how to kind of walk up to people and introduce yourself and make yourself.
Very well said, Raunaq. I remember my initial few days, I was so uncomfortable. I'm sociable. I talk to people, but I was so uncomfortable because you would be one, like I said, one in a room of so many men around, and then you want to make sure that you are keeping up pace with what they're conversing about. And it could be that they're talking about sports that you are completely oblivious of, so you have to find
that, women tend to, and I see this, 25 years later, I still feel awkward. And I think that I feel the pressure to add really valuable insight to the conversation. Where it's just we other people having a regular conversation. But I see this with a lot of the other women on the table. They're all adding insights and value, and somebody else is just sitting over there comfortably making a joke. And I think that's
making a joke also
syndrome at work.
Yes. No, I completely agree.
How did you get over your imposter syndrome?
It took me a while, Raunaq. For me, it was not so much out here as much as it was abroad, because we used to attend a lot of conferences in the US. And it's difficult because you are not coming from that culture, not that from that background where people naturally have an affinity to speak with each other and they know each other. There are so many people that they meet across, and we are not necessarily those. At least I was not one of those back in the day. And I'm talking about, time about 15, 20, almost 20 years ago. Not more than that, but at least 15 to 20 years ago. It was hard. But every year I got there, I got better because I knew what to expect and I learned over time, So even if it meant holding a drink and not necessarily drinking it, but mingling and being a part of that conversation and putting, sharing a few insights, even small, was a starter for me. And from there, I slowly started building in. In the initial years, I was just a mute spectator. I was just watching. I was just trying to figure out, what they're doing and how they're doing it. And it was usually late in the night after a conference, a dinner party, for instance. And it took a while to get adapted to that scenario. It's not so hard now, but it's still not easy 20 years after.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. And I think unless you felt that awkwardness of feeling like you want to disappear into the wall, don't really fully understand it. Anila, at what point in your career did you feel like you had earned your spurs, that you had sort of become a person in gaming as opposed to a woman in gaming?
I think it was a journey again, Raunaq. It didn't happen overnight. So for me personally, the roles that I've played in my company, as you would see my journey over LinkedIn or wherever, it's not static. It has evolved. It has changed roles. I have changed roles over a period of time. And I changed roles because there was a need, there was an opportunity, and I seized that opportunity whenever that opportunity came my way without even thinking whether I could or could not do it. I figured a way to execute only after I took the opportunity, not necessarily before. I first said yes and then figured out how to execute it. I think it's important, Raunaq, because most often I think most people operate quite the reverse way. You want to make sure that you're ready for the role and then jump into it. But it's not every day that an opportunity comes knocking on your door. And when it does, you should seize the moment. If you think, you're ready to take that plunge. But often you don't even know whether you're ready to take that plunge. And it's a risk that you take. That risk paved off for me. And the journey that I mentioned for me happened gradually as I started attending conferences, speaking at events. The first few events, I was a bit nervous, but I think I was able to share details because I was sharing details about things I was personally involved in executing. It was easy. And as I started gaining that momentum, I think things shifted, People saw me as somebody who was knowledgeable in this industry. And I also, like I said, it's been a journey for me. I was knowledgeable in this industry because I shifted roles and I took out opportunities, giving me a 360-degree view of the industry as opposed to being focused on one. And it continues to be a journey for me, Raunaq. I don't think I've learned it all. I don't think I will ever learn it all. But I am thirsty. I'm thirsty for knowledge. I'm hungry. I'm hungry to learn more, And until I can, I think I will continue to do.
Okay. I'd love to hear about maybe a gaming project or something that you're particularly proud of, that you kind of feel reflected a lot of the culmination of a lot of your learning. If you can share some with us.
Yeah, certainly. I think for most people, myself included, it will be the first project that you worked on, one of the first few projects that you worked on. And in gaming, for me, the first few projects that I worked on was a gaming project focused on words. The game has been closed now, it's shut down right now. But it was something that is very dear to my heart because I derived so many learnings from that experience. First of all, like I said, it was something that I was passionate about. I love board games. I like to play any game that's associated with words, not necessarily on mobile. I would play a crossword as well. I enjoy it. And this was an opportunity that I had to work with a team so new, not knowing anything about how games were made. And we were learning on the go as we made it. No, there were not too many references as well because we're talking about years ago. So not too many references to look up to as opposed to now. And now everything is free. Back in the day, it was all paid to play. Yeah. So you had to spend money to try out your competitor. It was a journey of passion, a journey of a lot of hard work. It was something. I still feel so excited just thinking about how that journey was, learning through with my colleagues and not just releasing the game, but marketing it, looking at feedback from players, feeling depressed when players were angry and figuring out how to, fix it, and meeting with Apple and showing them the game and trying to understand whether the UI and UX was good enough, whether we could make improvements. I think I learned a lot from that experience, and it's still very fresh in my mind because, like I said, as you evolve, your role just broadens so much that you're more horizontal than a vertical T-shape, no? And I miss that feeling, that I had.
Immersion.
Yeah.
Tell me, Anila, what today as a business leader, what are the areas that it encompasses so that the people listening can also get a sense of what the growth will then culminate to? What are the skills they should also be building as they go up the ladder?
Yeah, there are in gaming. Gaming is an interesting mix. Like I said, it's a mix of your technical knowledge, it's a mix of creativity and business intelligence. So I feel like there are a lot of opportunities for everybody involved to take on roles over here to scale. Be it on the creative side, for instance, you can be a designer, you can be an artist, you can manage the community, which also involves a creative element. There is marketing involved and so on and so forth. If you're looking at it from a business standpoint, it's about understanding your competitors, running these kind of analysis, knowing your audience, doing A/B tests, looking at your KPIs itself. A lot of analytical driven insights that are sort of involved in the business side of things. And of course, there are technical involvements where you are technically involved in either programming, the back end, front end, and so on and so forth. Several opportunities to look up to. You have to determine what your calling is. And like I said, seize opportunities that come your way. Opportunities don't come knocking all the time. There is a time and place for it. The industry is evolving, so there are so many new opportunities to learn from and evolve. And my recommendation is for everybody to find what their calling is. And I'm more than happy to speak to anybody who's interested to know more and share more with them, because for me it was a journey of learning, and not too many people learn from back in the day, and now there are so many sources to learn from, and I think there are great opportunities too.
Actually, since you're talking about learning, knowledge and knowledge sharing, whether it's through networking and knowing people, conferences, courses, it's become so important. So how do you stay connected? What kind of, for young women in gaming today, what are the platforms and conferences, events that they should be looking out for?
Well, if you're interested in gaming, there are several of them. At least some of things that come to mind, some courses that come to mind are courses on Udemy. There are courses on Coursera that are very, very interesting. There are certain sites like Pocket Gamer. There is Deconstructor of Fun, where you can actually see how others have dissected games and learn more from them. I know that LinkedIn Learning provides a lot of interesting learning opportunities for anybody who's interested, very accessible also, because I presume everybody who's trying to build a career in whichever industry is on LinkedIn. So I think there are a lot of interesting sources out there as well that are good to learn. Several conferences. I know in India in gaming there is an IGDC, good to network. Good for you to know and others in the industry, like-minded people, and also understand if there are interesting opportunities for you to jump into. I know there used to be a Fiki Frames in India before. I'm not sure whether it's still there. It's not necessarily gaming related. It is related to the entertainment space as well, animation, movie as well as games. And there are several other conferences abroad. There is a Pocket Gamer Connects in several countries. There is GDC, Game Developers Conference, which for me was a very interesting learning opportunity, both from a knowledge building perspective as well as from a networking standpoint.
So what are you working on now? What's inspiring you right now?
Well,
there are that you like word games, and word games, I think, with the New York Times puzzles are having a moment right now. They're really just everybody I know is playing all 5 of those games. So
yes.
What's inspiring you now? What are you working on?
I'm not directly working on any game at this point in time. I support games. So there are 4 of our games at Social Point. There is Dragon City, there is Monster Legends, there is Top Troops, and there is Two Dots. So there are these 4 games that I support with on multiple areas, be it in the area of new business development, be it in the area of managing the community, and the customer support or operations side, identifying the new business and growth opportunities for these games, collaborating with all of our partners, including Apple and Google, to secure featuring and things like that. So there are multiple things that I do, and it sucks a lot of my time. But also because Social Point is a part of the Take-Two family. It was acquired by Take-Two. And with the recent acquisition with Zynga, there has been a larger integration with Zynga and the other Take-Two companies and organizations. Well, we have a lot to network with internally and build synergies across, so most of my time is getting out there, and it's exciting because it's outside of your studio ecosystem now. You are, exploring other like-minded companies who are distributed across the globe. So we work with, for example, Nordeus based in Serbia, or with Zynga located all over the world, so there are interesting opportunities that keeps me engaged, and I'm not complaining one bit.
Excellent. Tell me, Anila, when Social Point happened, that's a big decision to make.
Yes.
Relocating, you're leaving a company you've spent a decade with. Was that difficult? Was that how did you make that decision professionally as well as personally?
Yeah, so it was a personal decision. My husband got an opportunity here, and I came along with the family. It was a difficult personal decision as well because, it was just the time where our daughter was born. So she was very, very little. And personally, for me and my husband, it was a moment of either doing it now or doing it a few years after. Logistically, it made more sense to do it now because, our daughter was very, very little. And it meant that she would be getting embedded into a new culture from the very beginning as opposed to later. It's difficult in Spain. Everything is easy in Spain except the language. I had to learn Spanish here, and I still haven't gotten a good handle at it. But it's not just Spanish alone, it's Catalan as well. So there are 2 languages as opposed to just one. And that was an interesting journey. On the professional side, it was an emotional decision for me. It was not very easy because I was associated with 99 Games and Robosoft for 15 years. It was hard. It was hard for me, and I believe it was hard for my peers and my colleagues in the company also to let go. Well, it was an emotional decision, but it was a decision that was important and had to be done. So I try to keep in touch as much as possible with my colleagues in my previous organization, but with time it gets harder, So we try to bridge the gap as much as we can.
Tell me about people, men or women, who have who turned around and given you that helping hand, helped nurture your talent, your ambitions in your career.
On the personal side, I would say that my family has been incredibly supportive. I am quite quite a bit of a rebel, and I'm stubborn, so I like to get things done my way. And I think for the most part, they're incredibly supportive. And I think they've played a fundamental role in getting me to where I am today, because if it was not for their support, it would have been hard. There are these gender stereotypes that are associated, and you feel also personally responsible, no, when you have a little child, when you have a family. But no, I think my family has been incredibly supportive, and I should call that one out, because not everybody is as lucky, I would say.
Yes.
On the professional front, I think there were several people who helped me, especially my first mentor, who was the CEO of Robosoft and 99 Games, who gave me umpteen opportunities to grow. I think I was good at certain areas, but if I didn't get those opportunities, I wouldn't have been able to hone myself into where I am today. So I think I should call that one out. There were several of my other colleagues who were a little bit more senior than I was, who gave me direction, supportive, very, very, it was useful because they were not necessarily in the area that I worked in, but gave me some kind of direction, and that was incredibly helpful. At Social Point, I've had a few of my peers. It's a little different here, because when I came to Social Point, as opposed to my previous organization, the CEOs and most of the talent was much younger than I was, so you always have this tendency to look up to people who are senior than you, have more experience than you, but here it was the other way around. But I must say that it was an interesting learning experience for me when I came in over here, although most of them were a few years younger than I was. And even the young talent who just graduated and came into, to join us at the company had such a different, fresh perspective that I should say was missing in my previous organization. Were a little bit more shy and timid and not very vocal when they joined fresh out of college, as opposed to how I saw people out here, open, asking questions, curious to learn more, and not shying away from asking questions. And I believe that they played an important role in shaping my journey as well.
Now, as a leader in the gaming space, tell me how, in any ways, that you have turned around and lent somebody that helping hand or that mentorship.
Yeah, so when I came here to Social Point, one of the things that I was managing was a program called the Market Intelligence Program. It's an interesting program for those who are passionate about gaming, but have not necessarily had an opportunity to get into the industry. It's very hard. It's very difficult to get into this industry unless you have prior experience. And like most cases, how do you get that experience unless somebody gives you that break, So we designed this program in a way that allowed people to get involved. It's not an internship, mind you. It's a full-fledged employment. You get all of the employment benefits, but we hire in pairs. So at the most, we hire around 4 people or so a year, or sometimes 6, depending on need. But the idea is to groom this talent and give them an opportunity in the space, give them, help them learn about the industry. We invest in them for 1 whole year, almost a year, 9 months to 12 months, sometimes even more. And with the goal of giving them an opportunity to get a 360-degree view into the industry. So we rotate them into these different departments for a few months. For example, they may get into the analytics team and learn a little bit about what the analytics team does. They get into marketing or user acquisition and get a good understanding of what is happening out there. They move into product and they try to understand what the games do, how the games are designed, how product-driven decisions are made, and so on and so forth. And finally, at the end of this period, they are allocated to a game or a department that they're passionate about. For example, there might be somebody who's interested in building a career in analytics and gaming. And through this program, we have given them an opportunity out there, which they probably wouldn't have gotten if they directly got into analytics. Yeah, it is. And I would like to take a bit of credit to this program because it was there before I joined in as well at Social Point, but I changed it to the form that it is today. And in the last 5 years, I think we might have had at least about 20 or so.
Wow.
Yeah, somewhere in that region. Who have benefited out of this program. But I also keep in touch, Raunaq, with anybody who reaches out to me, either from my previous organization or anybody in general. Sometimes people reach out via LinkedIn trying to learn more. And I think it's important for us to share this knowledge and learning, even if it means it's a 30-minute Zoom call, I do it. because I know that it would have helped me immensely if I had somebody mentoring me in that way, at least giving direction. So giving them simple inputs as to how to get started, where to get started from, what are the sources they can learn from that will help them get their foothold and take it from there, So that's how I try to support. I'm not very active in women in gaming and so on as I think I should be. I just somehow have not made the time for it. But when anybody reaches out, I'm more than happy to help.
I think that's fantastic. And really, there's an old saying, charity begins at home. And I think when it comes to knowledge sharing, traditionally we have been a space that, where women have not really taken time out to do that. And I'm delighted to see that you are both, publicly in conferences and sort of speaking and forums, and also, just personally with the platforms at your company. Tell me, for women getting into gaming, do you have a piece of advice that you'd like to leave them with?
Yeah, I don't think you need to be an avid gamer to get into gaming in the first place. So remember that. That's the most important thing you need to learn. You should be passionate about playing anything in general. It's okay if you're playing a tangible game. It doesn't have to be a mobile game, or it's okay if you're just playing, a Tetris, Candy Crush, even the Snake game on Nokia. You're playing a game at the end of the day. Yeah, and probably investing a lot of your time, it's not just about paying, but also investing your time that adds value to a game development studio at the end of the day. So my advice would be, 1, don't worry if you are not a hardcore gamer. Just take the plunge, get knowledge, learn about it, learn about the industry. In all of these interviews, it helps to understand that you're making an effort and you're not going there without preparing, Whether it is preparing about the company alone or preparing about understanding a little bit about the industry, or even playing a few games of the company comes a long way. It helps you. Don't hesitate to ask questions, to reach out to people. We typically don't do that. We are always worried about either people not having the time for us, or we are just, we spoke about how difficult it was for us to engage in the networking opportunities. You just stand back watching. It's okay to watch for some time, but you have to take the plunge at some moment, and that's where you begin. So don't hesitate to do that. Seek help. I'm sure most often than not, people are willing to help. It's just that you need to ask for it. That would be my advice. Everything else is easy.
I think that's really good advice and practical. And I think that's probably true not just for women in gaming. That's true for people in youngsters in all of their walks of life. Anila, please nominate 2 women in entertainment for the long list for the 2025 cohort. Our jury takes a final call, but the same way that we are celebrated, the idea is this way we'd like to get you to start amplifying others.
Yes, certainly. So I would nominate Shilpa Bhatt from 99 Games. I don't know if she's been nominated in the past, but we worked together, and I think she's a brilliant woman in this space, making a lot of time and energy, and I don't know how she does it. I think she's due for this. I have not been in the Indian ecosystem for a lot of time, so I can't think of people very quickly. So I still think of 99 Games. And there was another lady called Renita Pinto. I think she started in ad monetization, and then she switched into analytics. I think she's been in the industry for around 8 years now. Probably still with 99 Games, but I'm not very, very sure. Very, very brilliant lady. I should also
tell you that Shilpa is actually in 2024's cohort of one of the women that we're celebrating as a woman game changer. But yeah,
thank you so much. It's really good to know.
Yeah,
pretty good to know.
So much for the recommendations and for the intention and consideration of having names to suggest. And Anila, thank you for joining us today. It was lovely talking to you and learning from you. And congratulations. We look forward to the many mountains you are still to climb.
Thank you very, very much, Raunaq. Thank you for the opportunity and happy to help.
This is Raunaq from Hungama. Thank you for tuning in and stay with us as we meet more women in entertainment who aren't just playing the game, they're changing.
In conversation with some fascinating ladies who've changed the game in the world of video, music and gaming. Only on Hungama's Women Game Changers podcast.